This is Something's Coming Up, where the purpose is to release, to purge, to reach one, teach one, help one, save one, to stir up what's inside so something's always coming up. I am your host, Kimberly Newton-Nichols. Welcome. Let's continue to push through the pain.
Today I have a special guest, Roderick Johnson. Absolute pleasure to have you here with me. And
Thank
I want
you.
to thank you for this opportunity.
I thank you for this opportunity.
I want to get right into it, about your life story, your experience, and what brought you here. Mm-hmm. And it's more than anything, it's a message of hope. So I want you to know from me, it's no judgment. This is judgment free. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking to you based on your story, but more so based on your mental and how you're feeling today based off of what you went through. Okay? So we want to talk. If at any time when I'm going through it, and you fact check me, mm-hmm. okay? Because I may get some stuff wrong. So I want to start with, how old are you right now?
45.
And the reason I start with how old is he right now, because at 20 years old? 20 years old. He's 45 today. So at 20 years old, you was convicted of a crime, and that crime led you to being locked up, a trial, but it ended up getting you locked up. And what was your sentence?
I had 2 death sentences, a life sentence without parole, plus 5 to 10 years.
Repeat that for me.
I had 2 death sentences.
2 death sentences, death row.
Yes.
Okay.
2 death sentences, a life sentence without parole, plus mm-hmm. 5 to 10 years.
Plus 5 to 10.
Yes.
That math doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because if you have a life sentence, why do you need 2? Life is life.
Well, if you have a death sentence, why do you need a life sentence?
Exactly.
So they wanted me to die, come back, die again,
and then come back,
serve natural life,
mm-hmm.
die, and then come back and serve 5
mm-hmm.
to 10.
And I want to put this disclosure out too, because even though I'm speaking to you, mm-hmm. I don't want anybody to think I'm making light of loss of life. Neither of us are.
Absolutely not.
What this message is about is just not giving up. And sometimes you go through things what looks absolutely hopeless and no way out. But to keep believing in yourself. So that this story is coming from that place, and it is by no means ignoring the fact that there was life loss or taking anything for granted. My message and this interview is about your journey and what you went through. Mm-hmm. I talk a lot about mental health, and the avenues it takes people. And I want you, introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Roderick Johnson, born and raised in Bronx, New York, Tracy Towers. I'm a father of 4, grandfather of 4.
Wow, and you look good. You look young.
Thank you.
You said grandfather of 4?
Grandfather of 4. Father of 4 and grandfather of 4.
Okay. That's some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So in saying that, you said 2 death sentences, a life sentence,
right.
and
5 to 10.
5 to 10. In between all that time, so you went away at the age of 20.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're sitting in a courtroom and that sentence is now read back to you, even before you get there, when you're accused of this crime, tell me at 20 years old, what does that feel like? What is like initially going through your head?
It feels unreal. Like it doesn't feel like it's true. You know, mm-hmm. It's like, this can't be happening. Like, this is not real, especially mm-hmm. coming from New York. I was arrested in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have the death penalty in New York in the 90s.
Okay.
I think they stopped the death penalty in New York in like 76, in the 70s mm-hmm. sometime, maybe the late 80s. But, you know, in Pennsylvania, they had the death penalty. So even when they came and said, we're seeking capital punishment against you, we're seeking the death penalty, you're like, what? What are you talking about? You know, so it's like you try to wrap your head around it. You try to figure out, especially when you know you didn't do what they're accusing you of.
Tell, because when we talk about it, I want, if people, like you're telling them you didn't do it or what the charge was, tell them what your charge was.
I was charged with 3 counts of homicide, conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated assault, conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, possession of crime not to be carried without a license. I had a total of, I believe it was like 19 counts on each indictment, 3 indictments. You know, so you facing murder, you know, facing capital punishment, the death penalty, and you're trying to process, 1, what's going on, 2, how is this being done when you know the people who are charging you are criminals themselves.
Right. And I want to get into that, because that leads to why you're sitting here when it eventually all comes out.
Yeah.
So I read some of your story, a lot of your story, and it's not a story like how you said the counts and what the charges are and how much each charge for each count was.
Yeah.
So it's not a story that on paper that you can just read once and understand it.
No,
I had to reread it a few times to understand what exactly it is they're saying. So in the story itself, you never denied being there.
No, absolutely not.
So it was never a question of where you were. It was a question of, I'm not a saint, but I'm not doing what y'all said I did, and I'm not going to ever admit that I did something that I didn't do. Okay. So now let's start from the court and what you sit there and you hear it.
Well, you know, you sit there and you hear it, and it's like, some people, as you see on TV, they explode in the courtroom and flip tables over. To each own. Everybody goes through and experience, things different ways. But for me personally, I was sitting there trying to wrap my head around what was going on and why it was happening. Because it was like, this cannot be happening. What do you mean you sentencing me to death? For what?
Right.
I didn't do nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got shot. They tried to kill me, and you sentencing me to death. Like, so it was like, and it was crazy because, the whole time, I'm trying to prove my innocence, and it wasn't until after, it really didn't hit me until after I got convicted. And it's crazy because the day I was sentenced to death, and it was on Thanksgiving Eve. The judge even told the jury, hurry back. I know y'all want to go home for Thanksgiving, so hurry up with your verdict so I can, release y'all.
That's what you heard. Hurry up with his life. Let's get this over with.
Yeah. Okay. So now mind you, you're supposed to have a jury of your peers. I was 21 when I went to trial, 20 when I got arrested. Everybody in my jury was all white in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. The foreman of the jury was falling asleep during my trial. So I get sentenced to death the day before Thanksgiving. And I go back to the block. Everybody, it's already on the news because it was one of the biggest cases in Reading, Pennsylvania at the time. Right. So I get back to the block, the county jail. And this time they were still placing you in general population. Years later, once you get sentenced to death, they started immediately putting people in solitary confinement in a hole. At this time in 97, they were still putting you in general population.
So let me understand, if you get sentenced to life in a trial today, from the courtroom, you go straight to solitary.
Go straight to solitary.
But back then,
life or capital punishment, you go straight to the hole. You go straight to solitary.
But back then, you were still in general population.
You would still go to general population, be with everybody else. So I get back to the block, and I'll never forget this. May she rest in peace. It was this sweet, older lady named Dawn Robacher. And, she would always talk to me, every day. She knew what I was facing. And, how you doing today?
She sees this 20-year-old. Right.
How you doing today? Are you okay? How you feeling? I guess, they tell you too in the jail to watch, because a lot of people commit suicide in jail. You know what I mean? So I guess they tell her too, watch him, pay attention to him, So when I get back to the block, I'm still my, for people who know me, when you see me, I'm 90% of the time, I'm in a good mood, got a smile on my face, a word of wisdom, you know what I mean? For somebody, people even call me today and like, give me that good word for the day. Give me that direction, that positivity that I need for the day. So I was known for that throughout the jail also. To this day, people call me from the jail for advice and for wisdom. Okay. But she's like, what's wrong? So, she's like, you okay? Nothing's wrong? So I come on the block. I'm like, no, I'm all right. She bawls out, starts crying like a newborn baby.
She knew when you didn't yet?
She knew. It was all over the news.
Okay.
But she was like, how can they do this to you? You so sweet. I can't believe this. I know you didn't do this. This is a correctional officer.
Okay.
Standing at her desk, bawling like a baby. And I'm looking at her like, you okay? I'm patting her back. Like, but this is supposed to be the other way around. So I'm looking at her like, you okay? She's like, no, I can't believe this. No, this can't happen to you. So I end up, it was lock-in time. I end up going to the cell, and I'm sitting in the bed looking up at the ceiling, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But from day one, even from my trial, from the day I got arrested, I knew I was coming home. Because I knew you can't. What they say don't come out what doesn't come out on the wash comes out in the rinse. So I knew everything that was going on and was being done was going to come out sooner or later, and that I would be free. How long it was going, I didn't think it was going to take 24 years.
Right.
But I knew one day I would be walking out those doors.
How does that work? Explain, because I'm not familiar with how this works. If somebody says you have a death sentence, you're a death sentence, how do you go 24 years without being put to death? How do you serve?
The appeal process, and that's extremely rare.
Right.
See, but the thing is, in Pennsylvania is one of the rarest.
We're grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But then again, God had a plan.
Right.
You can't alter or change what the will of God is.
Has you on.
Exactly.
Right.
So, with that being said, Pennsylvania is not and was not executing prisoners at that time.
Okay.
In order to get executed in Pennsylvania in the 90s and the 2000s, you had to want to die.
So if they don't have execution, so they can sentence you to an execution, but they don't have the execution in their state.
They haven't, but they wasn't pushing it like you have Texas, Florida, Alabama, Ohio, Georgia.
This is what we do.
That's
right.
You got a 5-year appeal process, and back in Texas, right now with the criminal justice system and everything that's going on with prosecutorial misconduct, people getting framed, the blessing that DNA came and is being able to show people who were wrongfully convicted or, exonerate them and prove them innocent, changed a lot in the criminal justice system. But before that, Texas, in that electrocution chair they had called Old Sparky or whatever it was called, you was done. Within 5 years, you was getting executed.
So, had you been wrong place, wrong time somewhere else, or like
I wouldn't be here right now.
Okay.
I wouldn't be here right now. Within 5-10 years, I would have been executed.
So that's usually once you're sentenced to execution, that's your window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's even worse in the feds. You know what I mean? In the federal death penalty, you only have 3 appeals. Whereas in the state, you have 6. And you can even break those down into what they call successor appeals and get longer, expand your appeal process. But in the federal death penalty, you only get 3 appeals and it's over. And I mean, really 2, because United States Appeal Court, they're not hearing nothing. If it don't have to do with something that's going to change the United States, United States Court of Appeal, if it doesn't have something to do like voter rights, abortion, something that's going to change every state in the country,
collectively,
they're not hearing it. So you only have 2 appeals in the feds. You got people in PA who've been on death row 30, 40. A good friend of mine who I call my brother did 33 years, just got exonerated and came home a month and a half ago.
But with that being said, that part of the system is broken.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
The whole system is broke.
Okay, and we know this
on
from
both sides.
Okay, take me back to our CO, who's in absolute shock of you.
All right, so she again balls out. She's crying like a newborn baby. We stand there. We talk for probably about a half an hour, and I'm trying to comfort her, and help her not fall apart on her job.
Right.
And I'm still, it still hasn't hit me what happened yet. So it's locked in time. I go to the cell. I'm in the cell. I'm laying on the bed looking at the ceiling. Right before shift change, she comes to my door. She's still crying. So she's like, if you ever need anything, just let me know. I can't believe this. Don't lose faith. Keep believing in God. He's gonna work it out. They committed an injustice. It's wrong. And I'm like, okay. Now I'm replaying my day, because that's what I would do every day after court. I would come back, replay my day. I would write notes. Try to remember everything that happened. Okay, I talked to my lawyer about this tomorrow. Bring this to the investigator's attention. Why did the judge do this? Why did the lawyer say this? This juror was doing this. This
Every
witness said this. Every detail. You replaying. You replaying. And you're not sleeping. I go through that now. At home, my thoughts is racing. You know what I mean? So you're not sleeping. So you go on to court the next day and you falling asleep at your own trial because you can't sleep. You fighting for your life.
Right, but that's given off I don't care, an arrogance.
Exactly. Because they're looking at it like, if you don't care for your life, why should we?
Right.
You know what I mean? You sitting here at the table.
The foreman's sleeping. You mad he's sleeping, but this is your life and you sleeping.
And you sleeping.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there, my lawyer, hitting me on my leg. I'm snapping my head up, I'm tired though. I'm fighting for my life. I'm in here reading case law. I'm reading through, my notes from the day before, what happened, and I'm fighting for my life. But in the same token, it's mentally draining. It's emotionally draining. It's spiritually draining. Because you're praying and you're asking God, why is this happening?
Right.
Why is this happening to me? Why aren't you answering my prayers?
It's not, but
you're the all powerful. Right. You're control of everything. What is going on here? But it's, a purpose and a plan for everything again. So like I was saying, she asked me if I need anything to let her know, to stay strong mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. She leaves. And, again, I lay there that night and I'm just looking at the ceiling, replaying the day. But it wasn't until, I want to say like 2 months later, there was another CO named Gregory Camper. He used to come on the block every day. As soon as he came on the block, he would hit my door. And he was a Christian and he would have his Bible. He would call me down to his desk and we would have Bible study at his desk. And he would give me like words of encouragement. You gotta trust in God. You gotta believe. Just stay focused. You're gonna get through this. He's gonna see through this. You got a plan. It's a reason why he's allowing us to go through you. And him and another guy used to call me Moses. And I was like, why you call me Moses? It was like, because you're gonna lead the people to the promised land. You're gonna make it through this. So I was like, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? But it wasn't until like 2 months later, I walked in the cell one day after talking to him. And I just dropped to my knees in the middle of the cell and fell apart.
It all came down.
It all came down. I fell apart. I started crying. I was just like a puddle of tears. You know what I mean? I'm not laying there, but I was on my knees in the middle of the cell. And I'm just like, please, God, like just crying. What happened? What is going on? And I just fell apart. You know what I mean? For the rest of that day, my associates, my friends came in the cell. Yo, you coming out the block today? Nah. Yo, what's wrong? You all right? I'll be all right. You know what I mean? Because you just not something that you...
How long were you in there at this point?
I got locked up December 12th, 1996. I went upstate February 12th, 98. So, a little over a year.
So at this point, you're 21.
Yeah. I was 21 when I went to trial. I got locked up December 12th, 1996. My birthday is January 30th. So I went to trial. My trial started November 7th, 97.
Your family, between going back and forth to court to the day you're locked up, you're watching the toll that has to be taken on them. But did you have the support throughout?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Not only family, my best friend 8 was there from the day I got arrested to the day I got released. He came and picked me up, took care of my family while I was incarcerated, took care of my kids. That's my kid's godfather. And I could never repay the debt that he 24 years. That's unheard of.
Let's
8, you know. But
that's not an easy task.
that's not, you know, but my family, you know, they was there. You know, I remember one visit. I've only seen my father cry twice in my life. When he was on the stand testifying, you know, begging his jury, you know, because your family has to testify about your character.
I'm getting ready to ask you, why is your dad on the stand?
Yeah, they have to testify and, you know, explain your character, their
So
character
it's a
witnesses.
character written, okay.
Yeah, you know, mitigate, it's called mitigating circumstances.
Okay.
These are reasons
to say
why.
who you are.
Yeah, these are reasons why you shouldn't sentence him to death.
Okay.
And my father was a New York City transit cop. You know what I mean? My mom was a nurse, then came up a computer technician. My sister is a lawyer, you know. So I'm sitting up there at this table and I'm watching my father, the strongest man that I know in the world, beg these white people not to kill his son. That in itself crushed me. Out of my whole trial, that in itself stole a piece of me. Then my mom, you know, get up there, she's begging them, she's crying. They took my mom to the hospital during my trial. My mom came to my trial in a wheelchair. My mother got multiple health issues. So for her to travel there for my trial was a task in itself.
But she's gonna be there.
But she's gonna be there. I'm a baby. And so, you know, she broke down in my trial, you know, had an asthma attack and, you know, they had to take her to the, you know, to the hospital. My sister, she's up there, you know, begging them, you know, not to, you know, execute, not to kill her brother. And, you know, to see my family go through that, you know.
All of it. It's
Yeah.
gonna weigh on you.
Yeah,
All of it.
it definitely, it weighed on me. It weighed on me. And that was the first time, no, that was the second time I see my father cry. The first time, it was my father, my sister, and my mother came to see me in the county jail. I want to say it was probably the second or the third visit. And the visit, it's a big plexiglass window. There's a counter on that side, a counter on this side where I'm sitting. I'm sitting on a metal stool. They're sitting on plastic chairs. And they came in the visitor room, you know, I'm looking at them and I'm like, why y'all here? So they look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yo, I don't love you. I don't love you. I don't care about y'all. Why are y'all here?
This
So
is what you're saying?
This is what I told them. And
Why?
I'm gonna get to that. And my dad, he called me Bongo. That was his nickname for me. And I just gave y'all something that y'all gonna be able to blackmail me with for the rest of my life. But he called me Bongo. And I was like, I don't love y'all. And they was like, what are you talking about? Why do you say that? I said, I was out there selling drugs. I was out there getting high. I was out there stealing from people, robbing people. You don't do, I said, I stole from y'all to get high. You don't do that to the people that you love. Why y'all here? I don't love y'all. Love is not a word, love is an action. My action showed you that I don't love you. Why are you here? And my father looked at me and he said, now you getting it, Bongo. And he started crying.